All right, welcome back, everyone. We're here today in beautiful Southern California with my good friend Connor. We're in his backyard. So today we're just going to be talking about learning English in chunking. Um, it's just an introduction video, so I'll be asking him a few questions, and stay tuned for our episodes. We're going to have about 20 episodes where we learn how to chunk in English. But first of all, before we get into that, Connor, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, about your YouTube channel, and how it grew to over 1 million subscribers?
Sure. Thank you, Alex, for having me, and thank you all for listening. My name is Connor, and I run the Listening Time podcast and Listening Time YouTube channel. And basically, the reason why people follow me there, watch me, listen to me, is because people that are learning English often have this big difficulty of finding content that's interesting for them, but that they can understand and that they can use to practice their listening comprehension. And that's kind of where my content comes in. So it's content that is a little bit easier to understand than native level content, but it's still interesting enough and engaging enough to be enjoyable as you listen or as you watch. And so people use it to improve their listening comprehension so that they can eventually reach that level where they can understand native speakers. So that's basically what I do. I create content for listening practice.
And have you seen a lot of your students reach that level of fluency in English?
Yeah, sometimes people will actually take classes with me. I don't do this a lot, but sometimes people will want to have a conversation with me, and they'll show up to the class and they'll say, "This is the first time I've ever spoken to another person in English." And I can't believe it because they're speaking really well. We're having a fluid conversation, yet they've reached that level never even having spoken to native speakers before. And it amazes me, but then I remember that, oh, other people have told me this. I've had this other student that did that. I see this pattern of people that have been able to reach a high level, and they can start speaking for the first time ever because of all the listening they've done, all of just the information that they've absorbed and has become just natural for them. Just kind of like how kids absorb so much repeated English just in a repetitive manner, and they just start to produce it a little more naturally. So yes, it's definitely happened. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, question number 2. From your experience creating content that helps people with listening, what's one key challenge you've seen English learners face, and how does learning in chunks address it?
Okay, one challenge is when it comes to speaking, people will have this issue of wanting to do too much. And what I mean by that is they focus on variety, on learning a lot of different possible things they can say, rather than getting one solid phrase down, mastering it, and then using that to say different things. So, an example of that would be instead of learning just like one phrase to ask a certain type of question and then using that to ask different questions with that same phrase, they don't approach it like this. They might worry more about variety and just thinking they need to say things in different ways, in different sentences, because they don't want to sound repetitive. They don't want to sound like they're just using the same phrases over and over again. And I always have to tell people that's how we talk as native speakers. I know this because I edit my own transcripts of my podcast episodes, so I see how I talk. And I use the same phrases again and again and again and again to start my sentences, to end my sentences. And they're very useful phrases because you can use one phrase and then just go in different directions with them. But a lot of times people worry more about variety and learning to say things in complicated or beautiful ways or whatever, when in reality, one single chunk can get you to like 5 different destinations in an easier way. So I would say a challenge would be they have this roadblock, they have this obstacle maybe where they think that they need to learn variety when in reality they should learn one chunk and allow that to kind of solidify that type of speech that whatever they're talking about, and then they can move on to another one, or maybe they can expand that later. But yeah, they need to get down a certain type of way, a certain chunk of how to say something. And then if they can do that, then that's going to open the door to many, many sentences that they can say, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you say learning in chunks is kind of like, I don't know, maybe when you build a house or maybe build a Lego structure with your kid, you build the little pieces first, get those together, and then you build upon it using those chunks?
Yeah, for sure. And we as native speakers speak in chunks. We speak with, let's say, a 3-word phrase, a 4-word phrase that come packaged together. They're ready-made, if you will. What I just said right there, if you will, that is a chunk that just comes as a package. Right. Each of those individual components can be used 1,000 different ways, if, you, and will, but that phrase together, if you will, is a chunk. And that's something that comes as a package, and that's how we speak normally. We have these little 2-word, 3-word, sometimes 4 or more word chunks, these collocations that just build our normal speech. Even our kids, as they're learning to speak, they learn this way too. They learn these blocks of language, and you're right, it could be like the foundation of many sentences, and then we build off of that just with that foundation. That's how it is. Yeah.
One that I'm thinking of now is, how do you, how do you use chunks? Or how do you cook this? Or how do you...
Exactly.
Whatever.
You could say a million sentences like that. Exactly. Questions are a great example of this. You start many questions with the same types of words, or the same chunks, we should say, and then that can go 1,000 different ways, but you've got the foundation there of the question.
How do you get to the bank?
Right, exactly. May I have blah, blah, blah. May I have another glass of water? May I have that that's on the table, please? May I have another one of this, right? Those chunks that just, are ready-made. They're there to use, and then you just build on them.
May I have your address?
May I have your address? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, question number 3. We might have covered some of this, I don't know. How has using chunks, like common phrases or expressions, helped your audience improve their fluency in real conversations?
Yeah. When I have conversations with people that take classes with me, what I'll notice is the things that they say fluently, like that flow naturally from their mouth, is that these things are the chunks that they've learned. So when stuff comes naturally, it's because they're already packaged together. There's no other way of saying that. They're just saying it as this chunk, and they already know what that is. And there are some really basic examples of this, like even when you just first talk to someone, you meet someone, when you say something like, nice to meet you, that is a chunk. A whole sentence can be a chunk like that. And these are the things that we don't even think about as language learners. We just say them because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that these are correct.
Right.
So
it's not like you're thinking of nice to meet you. You're not thinking of 4 words. Right. You're just thinking of nice to meet you.
Exactly. And then that serves you for every single encounter you have with a new person for the rest of your life. That one chunk will always serve you to start that conversation. Nice to meet you. I'm Connor. I'm whoever. Right? So those are the things that they, not just that, but more complicated ones, or not complicated, but ones that are just in our everyday speech. The things that they say fluidly are the things that are already chunked together, that they don't have to think about. What makes them stop and makes them a little bit more like speaking word by word, thinking of their words, is when they're not speaking in chunks, when they do have to consider each word or what the next word is. That's when it slows down, and then it becomes fluid when a chunk comes out, when there's like a 3-word phrase that they already know is correct and they just say it as the phrase.
And you know, I'm learning Spanish right now, and I can attest to that.
Yeah.
The phrases, the chunks that I know come out easy, and then when you actually want to say what you want to say after the chunk, it's a little bit slower, but eventually, you know, you'll get it.
Yeah, exactly. And those other things that you start to say later on, maybe those kind of become chunks once you've said them many times.
Right.
They just become their own set collocation that you use.
Right.
But yeah, exactly. Me as a language learner, I encounter that all the time too. Yeah.
Right. So let's do one more example of a really useful chunk. What would you say is?
All right. How about you're having a conversation with someone, and you want to talk about a specific topic, whether or not it's completely like super related to what's being said, or it is, but you're kind of shifting it a little bit, or you're just wanting to say, okay, I'm going to talk about this thing right now. We can use the chunk when it comes to. All right, well, when it comes to language learning, it's really important that you blah, blah, blah. When it comes to my own teaching practice, this is how I treat this subject. When it comes to Spanish, this is more of a difficult element. But when it comes to Greek, this element is more difficult. You see how I can use that to basically say, okay, I'm going to talk about this thing right now and start to say something about this thing. When it comes to blah, 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 comma, and then you say what you want to say. This is something I say all the time. It's like saying in regards to, regarding this topic, regarding this language, in regards to that subject, when it comes to. That's a great, when it comes to 4-word phrase that can serve you in basically any conversation. I don't know if you agree.
Right. Okay, yes, that's a very good point. And I think when it comes to anything that follows that sentence is going to be your experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, not always, but most of the time, it's going to be something that you're very good at. You know, like I would say, like, if you're asking me about my job, I say, well, when it comes to, you know, my job, fill in the blank.
Right.
Let's say I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And, well, you're a teacher, but let's say you're not a teacher. You're asking me about, you know, my English teaching. When it comes to my job as an English teacher, and then fill in the blank.
Right.
Or out there, if you guys work construction, or if you're a cook or anything else, you know, you could say when it comes to construction, and then whatever you want to say, or when it comes to cooking, fill in the blank. When it comes to this, when it comes to that, you know, you're explaining to people, you know, when it comes to this, then this. Right? Would you say that's fair?
For sure, yeah. He may not be the most eloquent speaker, but when it comes to explaining something in detail, he can really make things clear. So I'm saying, like, you know, in this specific domain, he has this ability to do that, right? So, yeah, very versatile.
Okay, well, last question, guys. As someone with a big following in language-related content, why do you think viewers should check out this new series on learning English in chunks?
All right, well, my content is listening-based, so that's basically who I am. I'm the listening guy. And so people come to me, to my content for listening. But one big thing that I just get asked every single day, I don't know how many times per day, if I were to look at the comments, there'd probably be another handful of comments about this today, is comments asking about speaking and how to improve their speaking, how to become more fluid and natural. They'll say things like, I understand really well, but I just cannot say what I want to say. Well, watching this series on chunking will give you a bunch of ready-made, just pre-packaged phrases that can act as foundation for your sentences, for what you want to express, your ideas. So once you get these chunks down, you can kind of build around them more easily. Like if you have nothing to say, you have nothing to bring to the table at the beginning, and you're just trying to say a sentence, that can be really intimidating. You don't know if what you're saying is correct. But if you have a phrase that you already know is correct, you know that you can start the sentence with, when it comes to, that already gives you the momentum for your sentence. You've already done a lot of the hard work, and then you're just going to add your own idea after that. So just learning these types of chunks that will be introduced in this series will really help give you the building blocks for your sentences. And you'll just have them ready-made. These are things that you just know are correct. You know them. Like you don't doubt these phrases, and that will help you get into the, let's say, the other part of your sentence where maybe it does require a little more personalization. But those chunks will really help you, give you the foundation for your sentences. So
awesome.
That's what I would
You know,
say.
another thing I just thought about, when you're talking about chunks, they're ready-made phrases, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I was thinking about cooking, because I like cooking. Imagine if I started to make a dish for someone and I had nothing ready.
Right.
The onions weren't chopped, you know, the fire wasn't on, like, you know, the meat was not seasoned. You try to do all these things all at once, but if you can just get the onions chopped, you know, the meat seasoned, the fire on, you know, your other ingredient ready, you're taking blocks and kind of getting it ready to go for when you actually need to cook something, you know.
That's a good comparison right there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that.
All right. So thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for our episodes coming up. Like I said, we're going to have about 20 episodes. It's going to be me and Annie explaining chunking. So thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Cool.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully that was good. Yeah.
Yeah, good.